The days after the attempted coup were tense but hopeful. Ethan had proven himself in both the labyrinth and in defending the palace. The Queen and Lyra had come to respect him, and the palace staff gradually accepted his presence. Still, Ethan knew that earning true trust and securing peace was a continuous effort. There were many factions and rivalries that had not disappeared overnight. Queen Lyra summoned Ethan to the throne room one morning. Her expression was serious but calm. "Human," she said, "you have faced trials and danger, yet your actions have shown the strength of your character. But there is one final challenge before your place here can be truly recognized." Ethan straightened. "What is it, Your Majesty?" The Queen's eyes softened slightly. "It is not a battle or a test of skill, but of judgment and leadership. A neighboring world has requested an alliance, but tensions are high. Their leader is wary of Xylarians and humans alike. You must accompany Lyra and me to negotiate. This will test your ability to act wisely and earn respect among allies and rivals alike." Ethan nodded. Humans had faced diplomacy many times on Earth, though not on a galactic scale. "I will do my best," he said. Lyra entered the room, her presence calm but commanding. "We leave at first light," she said. "You will need to pay attention, act carefully, and speak wisely. The future of our alliance depends on this mission." The journey to the neighboring planet was smooth, though Ethan observed the landscapes and cultures with fascination. He noticed the differences in architecture, in social customs, and in the way the people interacted. He realized that success would depend not only on words but also on understanding the nuances of culture. Upon arrival, the delegation was met by the alien leader, a tall, elegant being named Thalen. He had an air of authority and suspicion. His eyes scrutinized Ethan carefully, clearly noting that a human was part of the delegation. Thalen's voice was calm but firm. "I did not expect a human to be included in this negotiation." "Why is he here?" Queen Lyra stepped forward. "He has proven himself capable, wise, and loyal. He represents the potential of humans to contribute to peace and cooperation." Thalen studied Ethan, and for a moment, Ethan felt the weight of scrutiny. He remembered the lessons he had learned: calmness, respect, honesty, and observation. He bowed slightly. "I am here to assist in any way I can," he said. "I will listen, learn, and act wisely to ensure that our worlds can cooperate peacefully." The negotiation began. There were tense moments as the alien delegation expressed doubts and concerns. Ethan observed, spoke when appropriate, and provided insights that helped bridge misunderstandings. His perspective as an outsider allowed him to see solutions that neither side had considered. Lyra watched him closely, impressed by his composure and intelligence. "You are doing well," she whispered. "I can see why my mother values you." Ethan smiled slightly but remained focused. "This is about more than recognition," he replied quietly. "It's about achieving results and ensuring that no one is harmed by misunderstandings." Hours passed as discussions continued. Ethan offered suggestions, clarified intentions, and proposed compromises that honored both sides. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. Thalen, initially wary, began to nod in agreement with certain points. The negotiation, which had seemed impossible, moved toward resolution. By evening, a formal agreement was signed. The neighboring world would ally with Xylaria, recognizing the value of cooperation and mutual respect. Ethan had played a pivotal role in ensuring that trust was established and that potential conflict was avoided. As they returned to Xylaria, Lyra looked at Ethan with a mix of admiration and warmth. "I did not think humans could understand the subtleties of diplomacy here," she said. "But you have proven me wrong. You are more than brave. You are wise and capable of thinking beyond immediate danger." Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment but remained humble. "I only did what I could. Listening, observing, and acting carefully are often more powerful than force. I am grateful for the guidance I received from you and the Queen." Back at the palace, preparations began for the ceremony that would formalize Ethan's place within the royal family. The Queen had decreed that the human would be recognized not only as an ally, but also as a legitimate partner to Princess Lyra. Ethan stood beside Lyra in the Grand Hall, which was filled with Xylarians from all over the Empire. The walls glowed with energy symbols, and the air was filled with the soft hum of technology and anticipation. Queen Lyra addressed the assembly. "Today," she said, "we recognize the courage, intelligence, and honor of Ethan Marks. A human who has proven himself worthy of our respect, our trust, and our alliance. He has faced trials that tested strength, mind, and character. He has protected the palace, defended the innocent, and negotiated peace. And now he stands beside my daughter, not as a visitor, but as family. The assembly erupted in applause, some still hesitant, others fully convinced of Ethan's worth. Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting pride and respect. "You have earned this, Ethan," she said softly. Ethan took her hand, a human gesture of connection that she had come to understand and accept. "I am honored," he replied, "and I promise to do my best for you, your people, and our alliance." The ceremony continued, blending human and Xylarian traditions. There were words of commitment, gestures of mutual respect, and symbols that represented the merging of cultures. Ethan had studied these customs carefully, ensuring that his actions were appropriate and respectful. He moved with confidence, honoring both his own values and those of the Xylarians. As the ceremony concluded, the Queen spoke privately to Ethan and Lyra. "This is not the end of your journey," she said, "but it is a beginning. Together you will face challenges, lead by example, and show both humans and Xylarians what cooperation can achieve. Remember, courage, wisdom, and integrity will guide you more than power ever could." Ethan nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best to honor this responsibility." Lyra placed her hand on his arm, a gesture of trust and partnership. "We face the future together," she said. "I know we will succeed if we stand side by side." In the weeks that followed, Ethan continued to learn, adapt, and contribute. He worked alongside Lyra to strengthen alliances, improve palace defenses, and guide the integration of humans and Xylarians. The people began to see that humans were capable of more than they had imagined. Ethan's presence had shifted perceptions, breaking stereotypes and building understanding. He also grew closer to Lyra. Their bond, built on shared experience, mutual respect, and understanding, became stronger. They were not just allies, they were partners in every sense, supporting each other through challenges, celebrating victories, and facing dangers together. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens under the soft glow of bioluminescent plants, Lyra spoke quietly. "You have changed everything, Ethan. Not just for me, but for all of Xylaria. You have shown that humans can be courageous, clever, and honorable, and you have earned my respect and trust." Ethan looked at her, feeling a deep sense of purpose and connection. "I only did what I could." Every challenge was an opportunity to show that humans are capable of more than what others believe. "And I am grateful for your trust and guidance." Lyra smiled, a rare, genuine expression of warmth. "Then let us face the future together," she said. As the stars shone brightly over the palace, Ethan realized that his journey had brought him far from Earth, but he had found a place where he could belong, where his qualities were valued, and where he could make a difference. He had entered an alien world as an outsider, faced trials of courage, intelligence, and honor, and emerged not only as a survivor but as a respected partner, ally, and friend. The palace was secure, the alliances strong, and the bond between human and Xylarian unbreakable. And though challenges would continue, Ethan felt ready, for he had discovered something vital. True strength was not just in power, but in courage, wisdom, integrity, and the ability to rise above fear and doubt. And as he stood beside Lyra, ready to face whatever the future held, he knew that humans had a place among the stars, not just as visitors but as equals, capable of shaping worlds and building lasting connections. The Queen watched them from the balcony, proud and confident that the future of Xylaria was in good hands. For in Ethan she had found more than a human. She had found a symbol of hope, courage, and the limitless potential of a species that was often underestimated. Ethan and Lyra stood together, looking out over the glowing city, united in purpose, respect, and trust. The human who had entered an alien world now belonged to it not by force, but by proving his worth through action, character, and unwavering determination, and thus, a new chapter began. For Ethan, for Lyra, and for the people of Xylaria, a chapter filled with promise, unity, and the enduring strength of courage, intelligence, and honor. Life in the palace was unlike anything Ethan had ever imagined. Every day presented new challenges and new lessons about the world of Xylaria. From the moment he woke until he returned to his quarters at night, he was surrounded by the alien culture, its customs, and its people. He quickly realized that to survive, and perhaps to gain the respect of Princess Lyra, he needed more than courage. He needed patience, observation, and the ability to adapt. Ethan began with the language. While he could communicate with some of the officials in basic words, much of Xylarian speech was subtle and layered, relying on gestures, tone, and mental signals. Misinterpreting even one gesture could lead to offense. He spent hours with instructors, learning to combine speech with gestures, practicing the flow until it became more natural. Despite the difficulty, Ethan found himself enjoying the process. Humans were adaptable, and he was determined to master it. Princess Lyra, meanwhile, continued to observe him. She was often present during the lessons, silently testing him. Sometimes she would ask a question that seemed simple but had hidden meaning, expecting him to answer with both words and thought. Ethan failed often at first, but he learned quickly, adjusting his approach with each correction. The princess's stern gaze was always upon him, a constant reminder that earning her respect would not be easy. One afternoon, during a training session in the palace's combat arena, Ethan discovered another challenge. The Xylarians were physically strong, their reflexes honed to near perfection, and their fighting techniques combined speed, precision, and strategy. Lyra stood across from him, holding twin energy blades that shimmered in the sunlight streaming into the arena. "Humans are fragile," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "I wonder if you can even keep up." Ethan adjusted his stance, gripping his training staff tightly. "Fragile or not, I have survived worse than this," he replied with a small grin. Lyra lunged first, her movements fast and precise. Ethan blocked and dodged, using his agility and human reflexes to keep pace. He realized quickly that brute strength would not help here. He needed to anticipate her moves, to read the rhythm of her attacks, and to exploit even the smallest openings. Hours passed as they sparred, sweat dripping from Ethan's brow, muscles aching, but his determination never faltered. Finally, after an intense session, Lyra paused and studied him. There was a hint of respect in her eyes. "You are persistent," she said. "I did not expect that." "I have to be," Ethan replied. "Not for you, but for survival." The princess nodded slowly, and for the first time they shared a quiet understanding. It was fragile, tentative, and unspoken, but it was a start. Outside the training arena, Ethan began to notice small signs of unrest in the palace. Some officials whispered among themselves, casting suspicious glances in his direction. Certain sections of the palace gates had minor malfunctions, and strange creatures were seen in restricted areas. At first, Ethan thought it was coincidence, but his instincts told him otherwise. Humans had learned to recognize patterns, and he began to track each incident carefully. He spoke with a trusted palace servant, a young Xylarian named Kayla. She had become his informal guide and ally, helping him navigate the labyrinth of rules and customs. "There are those who do not want the human here," she said quietly one evening. "Some believe your presence weakens the Queen's authority. You must be careful." Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He was an outsider in every sense, and some would see him as a threat. But he refused to be intimidated. Humans had faced danger before, and he had learned that survival often required thinking differently than the enemy expected. As days passed, Ethan and Lyra began to spend more time together, though always under careful supervision. They shared meals, lessons, and conversations about the differences between their worlds. Ethan learned about Xylarian history, their philosophy, and their achievements in science and art. Lyra learned about Earth, human innovation, and the hardships humans had overcome. Despite the differences, they found common ground in their determination, curiosity, and sense of honor. Ethan admired Lyra's intelligence and courage, while she began to see that humans possessed a resourcefulness that the Xylarians often underestimated. One day, a message arrived for the Queen that would change everything. A faction within the palace, opposed to the Queen's decision to ally with humanity, had made a bold move. They had attempted to sabotage a section of the city's energy grid, and the palace's security systems had barely contained the threat. The attackers had been caught, but the audacity of the attempt sent a clear message. Some Xylarians were willing to risk war rather than accept a human into the royal family. Queen Lyra summoned Ethan immediately. He entered the throne room to find her seated, her expression calm but serious. "Human," she said. It appears that not all of my people support this union. Some seek to challenge my decision. Ethan bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, I did not come here to cause conflict. But if there is danger, I will help protect you and your daughter. The Queen's eyes softened slightly. Your courage is noted. But remember, this is not only about physical protection. You must navigate politics, culture, and the hearts of those who doubt you. This will test your mind as well as your body. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had dealt with hostile environments and unknown threats, but this was different. Here, even a misstep in etiquette or understanding could be fatal. He needed to observe, learn, and act wisely. Over the next weeks, Ethan was allowed to move more freely within the palace. He began noticing subtle signs of sabotage, messages intercepted, supply routes disrupted, and mysterious figures near sensitive areas. He applied his human skills of observation and analysis, piecing together the clues. One night, while investigating a minor disturbance near the palace gardens, Ethan discovered a small group of intruders attempting to bypass the security system. He acted quickly, using improvised tactics to trap them without lethal force. The intruders were revealed to be members of the faction opposed to the Queen's plans. The next day, he reported the incident to the Queen and Lyra. Your ingenuity saved lives, the Queen said, a rare smile touching her lips. You are proving that humans have value beyond what many of my people believed. Lyra looked at him differently that day. The admiration in her eyes was faint but unmistakable. You are not as weak as I thought, she said quietly. Perhaps humans are stronger than we realize. Ethan smiled, knowing that their relationship was slowly shifting from one of obligation to mutual respect. Yet he also knew that the political threat was far from over. Each victory, no matter how small, would be tested by those who opposed him. The following week, the Queen announced that Ethan would undergo a series of evaluations. These were not ordinary tests. They were designed to measure his courage, intelligence, and character. Ethan was to face challenges that had defeated many Xylarians before him, all as a demonstration of his worthiness to marry Lyra. Lyra watched him closely as the Queen explained the trials. These tests are dangerous, she warned. You will face both physical and mental challenges. Many have failed. I will not interfere, but know that your success or failure will affect more than yourself. Ethan understood. These were not merely challenges of skill, they were measures of character. He had faced danger before, but here, he would be judged not just on strength but on honor, ingenuity, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. As preparations began, Ethan spent his days training, learning about the trials, and studying the intricacies of Xylarian strategy. He trained alongside Lyra in combat, practiced the delicate communication gestures, and absorbed the lessons of the palace's history. Every moment was a preparation for what lay ahead, and every interaction brought him closer to understanding the alien world he now called home. At night, he often stood on the balcony looking at the city below. The lights shimmered like stars, and he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. Yet he also felt a strange sense of purpose. He was far from Earth, caught in a web of alien politics and culture. Yet he had a chance to show that humans could not only survive here, they could thrive. And for the first time, he realized that this was not just about marriage or politics. It was about bridging two worlds, showing that courage, intelligence, and humanity could shine even in the most alien of places. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan continued to prove himself. He adapted to the culture, gained the respect of the palace staff, and slowly, through shared experiences and small victories, began to earn Lyra's trust. She was still cautious, still wary of the human in her world, but she could no longer deny his determination and skill. Ethan had entered Xylaria as a visitor, an explorer caught in a situation far beyond his expectations. Now he was becoming part of the palace, part of its challenges, and perhaps part of its future. The road ahead was uncertain, full of danger, politics, and cultural obstacles, but he was ready. The trials, the intrigue, and the growing bond with Princess Lyra were only the beginning. Ethan knew that his journey on Xylaria would test him in ways he had never imagined, but he was determined to face each challenge with the courage, honor, and ingenuity that defined humanity. And so, in the heart of an alien palace, under the watchful eyes of Queen Lyra and the curious, The palace was quiet that morning, but tension lingered in the air. Ethan knew it was not just another day. Today he would face the Labyrinth of the Ancients, a legendary trial that tested not only strength and skill but also intelligence and character. Many Xylarians had attempted it before and failed. The labyrinth was said to be alive in a way, responding to the fears and weaknesses of those who entered. Some never returned. Queen Illyra summoned Ethan to the throne room. Her expression was calm, yet there was a firmness in her eyes. "Human," she said, "today you enter the labyrinth. This trial will determine whether you are worthy of my daughter. Succeed, and you will earn not only your place in the palace but also the respect of Xylaria itself." Ethan bowed respectfully. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best." Princess Lyra watched from the side, her arms crossed. There was a mixture of concern and curiosity in her eyes. "Do not think this will be easy," she said softly, almost to herself. "Many stronger than you have failed." Ethan nodded. "I do not fear failure," he replied. "I only fear not trying." With that, he was escorted to the labyrinth's entrance. It was a massive structure, carved from alien stone and energy with glowing symbols etched along its walls. The air around it seemed to vibrate, as if the labyrinth itself was aware of him. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. He had faced dangers before, storms, wild animals, hostile planets, but nothing like this. He stepped forward, and the massive doors closed behind him with a soft hum. The labyrinth was dark, lit only by faint symbols that glowed on the walls, guiding the way but also creating illusions. He could hear the faint sound of his own breathing, amplified by the emptiness around him. The first challenge came quickly. The floor shifted beneath him, creating a series of moving platforms over a deep chasm. One misstep would send him falling into darkness. Ethan paused, studying the movement. His human instincts told him to wait, to observe the pattern before making a move. He stepped carefully, timing each movement, and slowly crossed the chasm. His heart raced, but his determination never wavered. Next, the walls themselves seemed to change. Doors appeared and disappeared. Corridors twisted and turned in ways that defied logic. Ethan realized that the labyrinth tested more than physical skill. It was a test of mind and perception. He focused on his senses, relying on observation and deduction. Humans had the ability to think differently, to improvise, and he used it to navigate the shifting paths. At one point, he encountered a chamber filled with mirrors. Reflections of himself appeared in every direction, some moving independently, others mimicking his actions perfectly. The mirrors whispered doubts, fears, and threats in voices that sounded like those he knew. Ethan felt a wave of unease, but he remembered the lessons he had learned in the palace. Control his fear, focus his mind, and act with clarity. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and chose a path through the mirrors, ignoring the illusions. Hours passed as he faced challenges of strength, intelligence, and courage. He crossed swinging bridges over deep pits, solved complex puzzles that required both logic and creativity, and evaded traps designed to exploit his weaknesses. At each step, he relied on human ingenuity, thinking differently, improvising solutions, and never giving in to panic. Deep within the labyrinth, he encountered the final trial, a guardian of immense size and power. Its body shimmered with energy, and its eyes glowed with intelligence. The guardian spoke not with words but with thoughts that echoed in Ethan's mind. It tested him, probing for fear, weakness, and dishonesty. Ethan felt the pressure, the weight of the trial. But he also felt something familiar, the determination that had carried him through countless dangers before. He responded not with force but with clarity and honor. He did not lie, he did not cheat, and he did not give in to fear. Instead, he showed empathy, reasoning, and courage. The guardian's gaze seemed to assess him for a long moment, and then it stepped aside, signaling the path forward. Ethan moved through the final chamber, exhausted but triumphant. The labyrinth had tested everything about him, his body, his mind, and his character. He had survived not because he was stronger than the Xylarians, but because he had thought differently, acted with integrity, and never lost sight of who he was. When he emerged from the labyrinth, the sunlight of the palace courtyard felt warm and bright. Queen Illyra was waiting, as was Princess Lyra. The queen's expression held approval. "You have succeeded where many have failed," she said. "Your courage, intelligence, and honor are undeniable. You have proven that humanity has value beyond what many believed." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and respect. I did not expect this, she said. You have faced what even we could not. Perhaps humans are stronger than we imagined. Ethan smiled, though he was still catching his breath. I did what I had to, he said simply. Not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Over the following days, Ethan continued to adapt to life in the palace. He trained with Lyra, learned more about Xylarian technology and culture, and began to earn the respect of the palace staff and citizens. Each challenge he faced reinforced what the Queen had said. Humans possessed qualities that were unique, qualities that even the advanced Xylarians sometimes underestimated. Yet danger was never far. Ethan discovered that the faction opposed to his presence had not disappeared. Small acts of sabotage continued. Minor security breaches, intercepted messages, and unusual activity near restricted areas. Ethan used his human ingenuity to anticipate their moves, setting traps and countermeasures that prevented harm without escalating conflict. Lyra observed these actions closely. She saw not only his courage but also his cleverness and compassion. Humans had a way of thinking that was different from Xylarians, and she began to respect that difference. Slowly, the bond between them grew, though it remained unspoken and delicate. One evening, as Ethan and Lyra walked through the palace gardens, the air filled with the soft hum of energy plants and the glow of bioluminescent flowers, Lyra spoke quietly. You have survived the labyrinth, yet the palace still feels dangerous. How do you remain calm? Ethan looked at her, thoughtful. I focus on what I can control, he said. I cannot stop the entire world from being dangerous, but I can act wisely and with courage. Fear does not help. Action does, Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing his words. There was a wisdom in his approach that she had not expected from a human. She realized that strength was not only measured in power or skill, but also in the ability to think clearly and act with integrity. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A high-ranking official from the opposing faction attempted to sabotage a critical energy core in the palace. If successful, it would have caused a catastrophic failure, endangering the entire city. Ethan acted quickly, using a combination of observation, logic, and improvisation to prevent disaster. He rerouted energy flows, neutralized the saboteur without violence, and restored stability to the palace systems. Queen Lyra and Lyra arrived shortly after, assessing the situation. Once again, human, you have demonstrated qualities we did not anticipate, the Queen said. Your actions saved lives and prevented a crisis. You are proving that your presence here strengthens Xylaria. Lyra's expression softened, though she still retained her usual strength and independence. I see now that you are not only brave but clever, she said. Perhaps there is more to humans than we imagined. Ethan smiled, though he remained humble. I am just doing what I must. Strength is not always about power. Sometimes it is about understanding, observing, and acting at the right moment. The days passed, filled with lessons, training, and cautious trust. Ethan and Lyra began to work together more, sharing strategies, discussing customs, and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. The political threat from the opposing faction remained, but each day they faced it together, learning to rely on each other's strengths. Ethan's presence began to change the palace subtly. Staff and citizens who had doubted him began to see the value of human qualities: courage, creativity, and integrity. Even some members of the opposing faction hesitated, realizing that this human was not an ordinary outsider, but someone capable of extraordinary acts. Through it all, Ethan never lost sight of the purpose behind his actions. He was here to survive, to earn respect, and to prove that humanity had a place among the stars. He had entered the labyrinth and emerged stronger, not because he was stronger in body, but because he had used every ounce of human ingenuity, courage, and honor. Princess Lyra watched him with growing admiration. She saw a human who could face unimaginable danger and act wisely, who could think differently and solve problems that others could not. Slowly, her skepticism began to fade, replaced by a cautious trust and respect. And though neither of them spoke it aloud, a bond began to form. A bond built on shared experience, mutual respect, and the understanding that true strength often came from qualities that transcended species. Ethan knew the journey was far from over. Trials, challenges, and political intrigue awaited him, but he was ready. He had faced the labyrinth, earned the respect of the queen, and begun to earn the trust of Lyra. His human qualities, courage, intelligence, and honor, were proving themselves in a world that had once doubted them. The palace was quiet that morning, but the calm was deceptive. Ethan sensed it, just as he had learned to sense subtle shifts in the air, the way certain officials lingered longer than necessary, and how some guards moved with unease. There were whispers in the corridors, faint but persistent, hinting at unrest. The faction opposed to his presence in the palace had not disappeared. In fact, Ethan suspected they were planning something far more serious. As he trained in the courtyard with Princess Lyra, he noticed unusual movements near the outer gates. "Something is wrong," he said, frowning. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You are always noticing things," she said, half teasing. "What is it this time?" "The guards near the east wing are distracted. Some of them are not paying attention, and I think a few messages may have been intercepted," Ethan replied. His mind was already analyzing patterns and possibilities. "I do not know what they are planning, but it is not good." Lyra studied him, a mixture of concern and respect in her eyes. "Then we must act quickly," she said. "Do you have a plan?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, but we must be careful. Any wrong move could make this worse." They began their investigation discreetly, moving through corridors and observing the palace staff. Ethan noted the unusual behavior of certain officials, tracing their movements and listening for hints of sabotage. The more he observed, the clearer it became. The faction opposed to the queen was planning a coup. Their goal was to seize control, remove the queen, and prevent the human from being part of the royal family. Ethan shared his findings with Lyra. "They are organized, but they underestimate us," he said. "We can stop them, but we need to act before they strike." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we prepare. The palace must be defended and the queen protected. Are you ready for this, human?" Ethan tightened his fists, feeling a surge of determination. "I was chosen for a reason. Let's protect them." They began their preparations. Ethan applied his knowledge of strategy, something he had learned on Earth through both military training and personal experience. He mapped out potential entry points, set up contingencies, and coordinated with loyal guards. Lyra helped, using her understanding of the palace and the strengths of the Xylarian defenders. Together they became a team, combining human ingenuity with Xylarian skill. The attack came in the late afternoon, just as the sun cast long shadows across the palace grounds. A group of masked assailants moved quickly through a hidden passage, bypassing outer defenses. Ethan and Lyra were ready. As the intruders approached, Ethan signaled the guards. With precision, they moved into position, cutting off escape routes and creating a tactical advantage. The assailants were armed and trained, but they were not prepared for the strategies Ethan had devised. He directed the guards to use environmental advantages, such as narrow corridors and shifting platforms, to control the flow of the attackers. Lyra fought alongside him, her twin energy blades cutting through the opposition with grace and skill. Despite the chaos, Ethan remained calm. He anticipated each move, adjusted his tactics, and improvised as needed. The attackers tried to exploit weaknesses in the palace's defenses, but Ethan's quick thinking and human creativity kept them off balance. He used non-lethal methods when possible, preferring to subdue rather than harm unnecessarily, knowing that mercy could win loyalty and respect. In the throne room, Queen Lyra observed from a secure vantage point. She had full confidence in Ethan and Lyra, but even she could not hide the tension in her expression. The fate of her empire hung in the balance, and the human who had entered her world unexpectedly was proving to be an invaluable ally. Hours passed in a blur of strategy, combat, and quick thinking. Ethan and Lyra moved as one, anticipating each other's actions. Their bond, though still cautious and professional, had deepened through shared danger. Lyra realized that humans were capable of courage and ingenuity, that even Xylarians often underestimated. Finally, the last of the attackers was subdued. The palace was secure once more. Ethan and Lyra stood together, breathing heavily but triumphant. Guards and staff began to emerge from their hiding places, grateful for the leadership and quick thinking that had saved the palace. Queen Lyra entered the room, her presence commanding attention. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of approval and pride. "You have done well, human. You have not only protected my palace but also proven that your qualities are valuable to Xylaria." courage, intelligence, and loyalty. These are not limited to our species. Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. I underestimated you, she admitted. You are not just brave. You are clever, quick, and resourceful. You have earned my respect. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. I did what I had to do, he said. Not for praise, but because it was the right thing to do. Every life matters, and I could not let them be harmed. The Queen's eyes softened as she regarded them both. This is the future of Xylaria, she said. Humans and Xylarians working together, not just as allies, but as equals. You have shown that humanity can rise to the challenges of our world. In the days that followed, the palace began to recover. The faction opposed to Ethan's presence was dealt with, though the Queen remained cautious. Ethan continued his training and education, learning more about the culture, technology, and philosophy of Xylaria. Lyra spent more time with him, not only as a teacher but also as a partner in strategy and understanding. Ethan discovered more about Lyra than he had ever expected. She was intelligent, resourceful, and unyielding in her principles. She cared deeply for her people and had a vision for the future of Xylaria. Together, they discussed strategies to strengthen the alliance between their worlds, blending human ingenuity with Xylarian tradition. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, the air filled with the soft glow of bioluminescent flowers, Lyra spoke quietly. You have changed the way I see humans, she said. Before I thought you were fragile, unprepared, and incapable of understanding our world. But you have proven me wrong. Ethan smiled, though he remained humble. I only did what I could. Every human has the capacity to adapt and rise to challenges. I am no different, but I am grateful for your trust and guidance. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the flowers. Trust is earned, and you have earned mine. I still have doubts, yes, but I also see potential, both in you and in what humans can bring to Xylaria. The Queen, observing their interaction from a distance, felt a sense of satisfaction. Ethan was more than a human intruder. He was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what could be achieved when courage, intelligence, and respect were combined. But Ethan knew that peace was temporary. There would always be challenges, rival factions, and tests of character. The journey ahead would be difficult, filled with political intrigue, cultural clashes, and personal trials. Yet he was ready. He had faced the labyrinth, survived the faction's attacks, and proven his worth to both Lyra and the Queen. The bond between Ethan and Lyra continued to grow, built on shared experience, mutual respect, and the understanding that true strength often came from qualities that transcended species. Together they began to plan for the future, envisioning a world where humans and Xylarians could work side by side, learning from each other and protecting what they held dear. Ethan's presence in the palace had changed more than just the political landscape. He had challenged assumptions, shown the value of human qualities, and inspired both respect and curiosity. He was no longer just a visitor or a pawn in a political game. He was a participant, a protector, and perhaps even a symbol of a new era. As the sun set over the city of Xylaria, casting long shadows across the palace grounds, Ethan and Lyra stood together on a balcony overlooking the glowing towers. The air was filled with the soft hum of energy, the scent of alien flowers, and the promise of a future yet to be written. Ethan realized that this was only the beginning. There would be more trials, more challenges, and more opportunities to prove the strength and value of humanity. But with courage, intelligence, and integrity, he knew that he could face whatever came next. And as he looked at Lyra, standing strong and confident beside him, he understood that the bond they were forming, delicate, tentative, but growing, would be a source of strength for both of them in the days to come. Together, human and Xylarian, they would face the challenges of a world that was vast, complex, and full of possibilities. The coup had been stopped, the palace secured, and trust was slowly being built. But the story was far from over. For Ethan, each day brought new lessons, new trials, and new opportunities to demonstrate the qualities that made humans extraordinary. And for Lyra, each day brought a growing understanding that strength, courage, and loyalty could be found in even the most unexpected places. The future of Xylaria, and the future of the human who had entered her world, was unfolding. And together they were ready to face it, one challenge at a time. Ethan Marks had always been curious about the stars. As a human explorer, He had traveled to several distant planets, but nothing had prepared him for the sight that stretched before him now. The planet Xylaria glimmered under a soft purple sun, its cities rising like silver towers from the lush forests below. He could see massive floating vehicles moving silently between the buildings, and energy shields shimmered faintly around the city's perimeter. The humans who came before him had only sent reports and photographs, but standing here, he felt the weight of being the first human to visit this world in person. Ethan's ship landed smoothly on the platform, its engines humming quietly. A group of Xylarian officials awaited him, tall and graceful with skin that reflected the sunlight in soft metallic hues. Their eyes were large and expressive, holding a mixture of curiosity and cautious respect. One of them, a female officer, stepped forward. "Welcome to Xylaria, human. I am Commander Valera. The Queen requests your presence at the palace immediately." Ethan nodded, trying to hide his growing unease. He had been briefed on the cultural protocols of Xylaria, but nothing in his training prepared him for the formalities of the royal court. "Lead the way," he said, adjusting the strap of his utility belt. The ride to the palace was breathtaking. Towering spires surrounded the road, and the streets were lined with Xylarian citizens moving gracefully through their day. Ethan noticed children playing near levitating platforms and workers tending to glowing plants that seemed to hum with energy. The technology was advanced, yet it harmonized with nature, creating a city that was both beautiful and alien. When they arrived at the palace, Ethan felt a knot in his stomach. The building was enormous, made of a shimmering material that seemed alive, reflecting the colors of the sky and waves. Guards clad in sleek armor flanked the entrance, and the doors opened silently as they approached. Ethan followed Commander Valera inside, where they entered a grand hall. The hall was vast, with ceilings that stretched higher than any human building he had ever seen. Light streamed through translucent panels, illuminating the room with a soft glow. At the far end, a throne rose on a dais, and sitting upon it was Queen Elira, the ruler of Xylaria. Her presence was commanding. She exuded authority, and yet there was a calm intelligence in her eyes that made Ethan uneasy. As he stepped forward, the Queen's gaze fell upon him. There was a silence, heavy and tense, that seemed to stretch for a long moment. Then, without warning, the Queen spoke, her voice strong and melodic. "You will marry my daughter," she said. Ethan froze. His mind raced to make sense of her words. "Pardon me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the shock. Queen Elira's expression did not waver. "You heard me. You, human, will marry Princess Lyra. It is my command." The hall seemed to hold its breath. The officials exchanged glances, some showing surprise, others silent acceptance. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to process the enormity of the situation. Marriage to an alien princess was not something he had ever imagined. Not in 100 lifetimes. I don't understand," Ethan said carefully. "I'm an explorer. I'm here on a diplomatic mission. I cannot—" "You misunderstand, human," Queen Elira interrupted, her tone firm but not unkind. "This is not a request. It is an order. Refusal is not an option. The alliance between our worlds depends on this union." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had faced dangerous missions before, hostile planets, alien creatures, and complex political negotiations, but this was different. This was personal, yet political, and he was caught in the center of it. Before he could respond further, a figure stepped forward from the side of the dais. Princess Lyra, the heir to the Xylarian throne, walked with grace and confidence. She was tall, strong, and strikingly beautiful, with eyes that seemed to pierce through to his thoughts. Her expression was a mix of surprise and indignation. "Mother," she said softly but firmly, "surely there must be another way. The human is not of our world. How can you expect me to accept this?" Queen Elira's gaze did not shift. "Lyra, you are my daughter. Your duty is to your people, to Xylaria. The human is chosen not by whim but by merit. He has qualities that your people will respect, and his presence will strengthen the bond between our worlds." Lyra's eyes softened slightly, but she did not step back. "I am not yet convinced, Mother," she said. "Duty is important, yes, but so is choice. This is my life too." Ethan felt a surge of respect for her. She was courageous, standing up to a powerful ruler even in a situation that demanded obedience. Yet he also understood that disobedience could bring serious consequences. Queen Elira's expression hardened. "You will have time to know each other, human," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "You will live in the palace under our protection. You will learn our ways and she will learn yours. At the end of this period, you will be bound in marriage. That is final." Ethan nodded slowly, realizing that resistance was futile. "Very well," he said. "I will do as you command." Lyra looked at him with a mixture of surprise and wariness. "Do not think I will make this easy," she said. "I would not expect you to," Ethan replied with a small smile. The queen dismissed him with a wave of her hand, and Ethan was escorted through the palace corridors. The hallways were vast and filled with light, and the walls seemed to shift subtly, reflecting the mood of those who walked within them. He was led to his quarters, a room that overlooked the city below. It was elegant yet functional, filled with technology he could barely recognize. Ethan took a moment to breathe, staring out over the city. He thought of home, of Earth, and wondered how he had ended up in a situation so strange and dangerous. He was a human in an alien world, commanded to marry a princess he had never met, and yet he could not shake the feeling that this was an opportunity unlike any other. Later, he was summoned to meet Princess Lyra formally. The room they met in was circular, with light filtering from above in soft beams. Lyra was waiting, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "You will live here," she said, motioning to the palace, "and you will follow our customs. Do not mistake kindness for weakness, human. I will not tolerate foolishness or disrespect." "I understand," Ethan said calmly. "I am not here to fight, but to learn. I want to understand your world, your people, and your ways." Lyra's gaze softened slightly, though she did not smile. "Few humans have ever shown interest in understanding Xylaria," she said. "Most come to exploit, to observe, or to fear. Perhaps you are different. We shall see." Over the next days, Ethan was introduced to the complexities of Xylarian life. He observed their customs, their technology, and their social structure. Everything was different, from the way they ate to the way they communicated. Humans relied on words, but Xylarians relied on both thought and gesture, a combination of language that required focus and patience to understand. Ethan struggled at first, making mistakes in etiquette and misinterpreting subtle signals. But he also found allies among the palace staff, who admired his curiosity and willingness to adapt. They began to teach him, guiding him through the rituals, the meals, and even the sparring exercises that were part of Xylarian education. Princess Lyra observed him during these lessons. She watched his persistence, his respect for her people, and his refusal to be intimidated by the unfamiliar. Slowly, she began to respect him, though she would never admit it aloud. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the alien horizon, Ethan and Lyra found themselves alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The air was warm and the sky was painted in hues of purple and gold. "This world is beautiful," Ethan said softly. "I have seen many planets, but nothing like this." Lyra did not respond immediately. She was silent, lost in thought. "Beauty can be dangerous," she said finally. "Many have underestimated Xylaria because they only see what they want to see. Do not make that mistake, human." "I will remember," Ethan replied. "I am here because I was chosen, yes, but I want to earn your trust, not just obey an order. I will respect your people and your customs." Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time there was a hint of something unspoken between them. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was mutual respect. But whatever it was the beginning of a connection that neither had expected. The night deepened and the city below glowed softly. Ethan knew that the days ahead would be filled with challenges, political intrigue, cultural barriers, and personal tests of courage and character. But he also knew that he would face them head-on, using every skill and every ounce of human ingenuity at his disposal. As he returned to his quarters that night, he realized one thing clearly. Nothing on any world he had ever visited had prepared him for this. Yet for the first time in his life, he felt that perhaps humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, had something unique to offer this alien world, and so, on the planet Xylaria, under the watchful eyes of Queen Elira and Princess Lyra, the human explorer Ethan Marks began a journey that would test not only his courage but also the very meaning of honor, loyalty, and the power of being human.